Get ready for a school scavenger hunt full of tons of violence and re/member or remember member, a Netflix original directed by Ichiro Hasumi, who did Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, based on the manga by Wellsard and Katsutoshi Murase. I hope I got even a bit close to pronouncing those names correctly. If not, I do apologize. This features Kanma Hashimoto, who was in the violence action, which was also a pretty fun Netflix original that came out last year. Very bright, very colorful, very, very weird. Also very Japanese. So it was definitely going to be bright and out there and very, very bizarre. She plays a young Japanese schoolgirl named Asuka, not to be confused with the WWE incarnation of Kana, aka Asuka. No, she is a schoolgirl that's just trying to get through her days. She feels that she's always alone and nobody wants her around. She thinks she's alone now, but the violence in the school halls will be the only sound. So, yes, after, we see brief interactions with a number of students. One night, July 5th specifically, 6 particular students get locked in a game called Body Search. They have to find 8 body parts of a girl that was killed a number of years ago, and they have to find them around the school ground. They have to find them before the red person ghost dismembers and kills and destroys them and everything. And if they can't find a way to do that, then July 5th will keep repeating and repeating and repeating. They will keep reliving this day, and it basically just gets more and more bonkers. And as things go on, it gets really, really strange, as you would expect when you are locked into a game called Body Search to find 8 body parts of a girl that was dismembered. And also there's a red person ghost that's very, very creepy and weird and well designed and very, very eerie and very violent. There's a lot of violence during particular parts of this. I'm not saying it's the most violent movie I've seen in a while, but it certainly has moments where I'm like, holy shit, they actually put some thought and some effort into this. And from there, we have a horror movie. There's a few tonal shifts in this. There's a weird comedy shift about almost halfway through that I thought felt a little bit out of place. And there are a few uneven parts. But as far as a movie, based around a manga, I thought this hit the mark more than it missed. Am I saying this is perfect? No. Is it wholly original? No. But it certainly was dark and very atmospheric. And while the acting is fine, really what's great about is the rich atmosphere and the creature design that does take various shapes, and you find out why as the movie goes on, though it is pretty obvious why these particular students were chosen. And since they're reliving this entire day, they kind of embrace it at first, and then things really start to get a little bit bizarre. Like they're upset about it, but then they have a weird shift where they're like, hey, wait a second, let's have more fun with it. Let's just eat what we want. Let's just do what we want or whatever, because we're going to die and then we're going to come back the same day. So it's all going to be repeated. We're going to eventually be able to find a way to beat this red person ghost. Yeah, the tone shifts are a little bit odd. I mean, maybe that is typical of manga. I haven't read that much manga, to be fair. But it ends up being quite entertaining. And no, I'm not necessarily going to say it's particularly scary, though there are a few jump scare moments. And again, the creature design for the red person ghost is quite good. It's not necessarily long in the tooth. I think there are parts where it almost repeats itself a little bit too much. Like, at first it was just said as a straight horror, and then it does this, and then it does this, and then it tries to throw a romance in a little bit later on. But then by that point, you're invested enough to where you want to see these characters succeed and move on. And then you find a certain twist about a character where, oh, maybe you thought that they were actually involved this way, but they're actually involved this way. And it ends up being pretty good. Not great, but pretty good and worth your time. Is it as good as the manga? I have no idea. If you've read the manga, if anybody has read this manga, please let me know if it's anywhere close to, the material that was in this live action adaptation. And that's really all I have to say right there. Again, creature design, pretty goddamn good. There were a few points where it was a little bit too dark, but boy, when it went to the violent part, it really decided to up it, and there was some pretty good blood splatter, some pretty good shit, and I thought it was pretty effective overall. Great? Not necessarily, but good. I would say good. It hooked me in the beginning. It lost me for a little bit and ended up just being pretty good. Not great, but worth your time if you have a Netflix account. So I am going to get into spoilers just so you know, but That's your warning. If it's on Netflix, if you want to watch it on Netflix, give it a shot. You may enjoy it. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. Okay, so basically, Asuka has always felt alone, and then there's this guy Takahiro, who ends up being a guy that she ends up kind of liking, and he feels that the need to protect her because he actually finds out that she's pretty goddamn cool and also not nearly as weird as she was as they purported her to be. A little bit earlier, though, we see coverage, like in clips and everything, like some Russian thing about this particular spirit or this entity that targets people and has been targeting people for a number of years. And this kind of reminded me of Corpse Party and also White Day, a labyrinth named School. In fact, that's actually probably, I think, the biggest influences. Yes, those games took influence from manga and vice versa. But what ends up basically boosting this above some other adaptations is the creature design and the fact that there's some pretty good, maybe not jump scares necessarily, but some pretty good action scenes, because you have these 6 people that are just desperately trying to find these body parts. Eventually they find a way where, hey, after this comedy tonal shift that was a little bit odd, they decide, we're going to come up with a floor plan. There's this one character named Shota, not Shota Umino, because we're not in New Japan. We are in Japan, but not in New Japan. They come up with a way to basically, he comes up with a floor plan, and they're trying to find, the various areas that they've already checked for the body parts. And meanwhile, Asuka happened to witness a character that was revealed to be the librarian that was burying something at one point. Missing body parts, burying something. It turns out actually that he had nothing to do with this, that he actually had participated in his own body search, and reveals to Asuka, hey, by the way, just so you know that I got out of this and we all forgot about it. We all forgot about it. Like, we were trapped in this and we all seemed like we were unified. But then once it was solved, that was it. And Asuka's worried about this because she's grown attached to these various people. There is one character in particular, Ray, I believe, R-I-E, or I think it's R-I-E, who disappears. And that's after being part of this group for a while, and you're like wondering, oh shit, all these times we're dying, like we could actually be replaced, like this is bad, we got to find the skull, because that's it, that's all they found. This ghost is a little girl that has a weird, like, creepy stitched doll that factors into the third act of the movie, because they find this murder house where this girl was, and she had drawn her and her doll, this very, very creepy stitched up doll that, the girl, that the red person ghost is carrying. And it turns out, holy shit, it's manifesting in this form to basically come at us. Like, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of the house. There's a little bit of comedy with a guy getting hooked on, like, seemingly like a weird loose wire. I don't know why they felt the need to make a guy named Shota a goof. There's no roughneck. Shota roughnecks. Whoa. But she's talking to this Takahiro, where she kind of knows where the skull is, or at least she has an idea. It turns out the librarian actually didn't do anything. And they've devised one final plan with a table full of drills to pin this thing against the wall, this weird creepy thing, that's all like tall and everything. And they pin it against the wall with a bunch of drills and chains, and they're chaining it up, and they're doing all this stuff. These people are banding together finally, and Takahiro had earlier given, he really feels a connection to protect Asuka, because right before this, he handed her a pin and said, one way or another, I will find you. Even if we forget, I will find you. I swear on this pin. And then they're really trying to stay alive. Ha, 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 stay alive, stay alive. And even though students keep on dying, they manage to hack this thing away. And what it turns out that the reason that it chose them is because of the various cracks in their hearts, the loneliness. Loneliness is godliness, and God is empty, just like me, as Billy Corgan once said before he lost his mind. But that's basically what it is. It's a ghost that targets, it's a spirit, an entity that targets loneliness. And that makes sense. I mean, to an extent, that's why it keeps growing more powerful and why they have to band together. And then they get to this chapel where they've been putting the body back together that nobody seemingly has gone into for a while. And as the day keeps repeating, you would think that somebody would go in there and find all those body parts and think, maybe we should test that. But they weren't going in there. They end up, it's Takahiro and Asuka surviving, or, till almost the bitter end. This red person ghost is getting battered and everything, but it's coming back, and Takahiro gets beaten and destroyed. As this red person ghost is almost down, but then gets back up, knocks Asuka down. You can't replace that skull. You can't replace that head, because the head was inside the red person ghost this whole time. That's why they couldn't find it. But then she beats him with a pipe, and then gets the red person ghost there, actually beats it with a pipe, and then this cross, because it's a chapel, comes down and just impales the red person ghost. She puts the skull back there, and that's it. And then they are all picked to be part of the school council project thing at this chapel after the body is discovered and everything. But everything's cool. And then Asuka's taking something out of her pocket, and the pin drops out, and Takahiro says, it's like he sees it and suddenly remembers, like, I told you I would find you. And there you go. There's a romance right there. That's a nice little hook right there. And that's it. Oh, wait, there's a post-credits scene where there's an article, the article that had the girl's face on it, Miko, I believe was her name, and it changes, it burns, and it's replaced with a picture of 8-year-old Asuka, meaning it's going to target her next, and we get a possible sequel. Remember RE/Member 2, Electric Red Person Ghostaloo? I don't really know what we call this. Again, uneven at times, fun for the most part, and good and atmospheric. Not necessarily scary, but I'm going to give it a B because the effort certainly was there, and it was pretty impressive. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retland. I'll see you soon.